Hey, thank you for coming to watch. So I've got you guys an update on pretty big things that are going to be happening across the United States today into the rest of this week and then eventually next week. Things are going to be pretty active for every single region of the country. You can see right now we are working with a pretty big system that's slowly moving its way off to the east here. But you can see we've got a lot of precipitation falling all the way up from the Toronto area down to southern parts of southern Texas. All right. But this is a very big system. There are kind of two systems right now. There's one that's developing right here. All right, this is developing just north of Minnesota. And this is also helping to push this system out of the way. So, these two systems are different. All right, but they are going to connect sooner than later, and they're just going to be that one big trough that's going to sweep down through the northeastern U.S. and then pick up the tropical storm out here, which is right now going right towards Bermuda. This is Tropical Storm Philippe, which we'll talk about in a moment. All right, so nothing much going on severe weather-wise. Yesterday we did have obviously that enhanced risk for severe weather, but you could see down here around the Texas and Mexico borderline, we have some pretty intense storms moving their way down south. I wouldn't say that these are going to be severe thunderstorms. I think these are just going to be heavy downpours that are going to be really raising that flash flood threat. All right, we go up towards Mississippi. Some thunderstorms, some strong. I wouldn't say any severe. But if you do find yourself in a strong storm, don't take this as a complete dangerous situation. You're probably just going to experience one of those stronger storms that you experience in your lifetime. But there's really nothing much to worry about. Then up here, all you've got is thunderstorms and rain. A few supercells developing here in this one line. Now this has turned into a damaging wind gust line, as there is an ongoing severe weather threat up here in upstate New York, and then also parts of extreme eastern Ohio. But for the rest of this storm you see here, this is just very heavy rain that's falling over these places. Nothing much severe weather-wise. Western U.S., you guys are pretty much dry and calm for the most part. But really for the eastern U.S., things are going to get pretty messy sooner than later. So we move on to our alerts. All right, you can see that we've got a few things to make mention of. As you can see, we have in the north-central U.S., some concerning alerts here because we have been dealing with some freeze. All right, we are getting into that time where once we get into this fall, that fall kind of season here, we get really cold temperatures in the mornings and during the night. So, if you're up north, like here in the north central U.S., usually at night, some cold air can snake its way down from Canada into your region. Okay, and that's going to definitely bring temperatures down enough that any standing water there, like we're having a storm system moving through right now, because it's dropping a lot of rainfall. All that rain is going to freeze on those roads because the not the daytime, but the nighttime and morning temperatures are below freezing. So that's why you have freeze watches and warnings out there. Okay, so you can see we got a freeze watch that goes up for parts of northwestern Minnesota into parts of North Dakota. Different parts of South Dakota. You guys are included in this freeze watch. This goes into parts of central Wyoming. You can see a lot of Nebraska, mainly central and western Nebraska is in this freeze watch, and this goes all the way down into parts of northwestern Kansas and northeastern Colorado. So it's a pretty big area under a freeze watch. This is a few million people that are going to be experiencing some freezing temperatures and conditions throughout the rest of this week. And then you see here in this purple here, this is where you get your freeze warning. This is where we are expecting definitely some frozen roads, icy roads, meaning that when you're gonna have rainfall coming down, that's all expected to freeze, and so that's why you see all of western North Dakota in that freeze warning that goes down into parts of northwestern South Dakota, a lot of western Nebraska, and then parts of southeastern Wyoming, all included in that freeze warning. So just make sure that you're aware that the roads will be icy, conditions will be icy, so you just want to make sure that you're cautious while driving on those roadways. All right. And then you can see out here in these tannish, brownish colors, you have wind advisories and lake wind advisories. It has been gusty in the past few days. This has been up for pretty much a week by now, but this has spread into a few parts of the country, including central and eastern North Dakota, parts of southeastern South Dakota, and northeastern Nebraska. You guys all are under a wind advisory just because we could see wind gusts that could get up to 50 to 60 miles an hour, so you may see down trees, down power lines, just because those winds are strong enough to potentially cause some damage to trees here. So for the rest of the U.S., we have a dense fog advisory for the coastal regions of New England here. We can see that this pretty much goes out all the way from Rhode Island up to southern Maine here, just for the coastline where that fog is still trying to get out. All right, along the coast of California, you have a special marine warning, meaning that you probably are seeing some waves that are big enough to definitely capsize some of those boats out there. We're getting monster waves out there on California. No systems that are moving through your area yet, but the seas are still very, very rough. And I believe there's also one out for Michigan here. But actually, I can't tell here. I know the seas are very rough, but I can't even tell if this is a special marine warning or a heat advisory. I think it actually might be a heat advisory, but I want to make sure that you guys know that these waves are very rough out here across the Southern California coastline. Just make sure that you are aware of that. But I think I've located that special marine warning. It is actually up for the coastal waters area of northeastern Minnesota, and those surrounding areas. You have a gale watch, and I believe this is a gale warning as well. So very gusty winds on those waters that are really causing some rough seas that are going to cause some capsizing. All right, here on the California coastline, you have a heat advisory just for these coastal counties. For the interior portions of California, not that bad with the heat. And then for the last alert here, we see that we do have a red flag warning for parts of southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and southern Alabama. So I just want to show you guys this here as we move on. I thought this was very interesting to see here. So we are looking at a webcam that was taken in a port city that was just this is just outside of Boston. You can really see very well how this fog works. All right, so I know it's been very, very foggy out here in the northeastern United States. When I woke up, it was very foggy. Visibility was pretty much a mile. So very, very low visibility here. But we're waking up to a beautiful sunset out here near Boston. I don't know what city this actually is. I guess this is near Lynn, in Massachusetts. So waking up to a very pretty scene here in Lynn, Massachusetts. All right, and so actually this was last night. This is pretty much around the dinner time area last night. All right, and so that's where we get that sunset. Now we're seeing now we're getting into the nighttime here. But let me play through this and notice how we wake up to fog here. All right, right here, wake up to fog. Look at this. Almost pretty much zero visibility here. This is pretty much when you get your first few hours of daytime, or daylight, I should say, and you have zero visibility. I mean, this house here is, this house is probably, like 100 yards away. I mean, this is very, very close here, and we really have some dense fog in this area here, and we get to this point here, and finally the fog is moving out, but watch how the fog cloud begins to move out. Here it is. I'll show you guys. I'll pause this animation here. You can see this entire line here of clouds is your fog, and you can see some of these boats out on the water, like far out on the water, still in that fog. So it's very interesting to see how we go from a extremely dense fog very early in the morning to this afternoon with the fog out in the distance. You can see that city out here near Boston. This might be Lynn actually, but the city near Boston is actually still in that fog. So it's very cool to see just looking at a webcam here, but really seeing how fog works and why it's so the visibility drops for such a long time, because that we got a large fog cloud that moved through the area, and then this is its arrival, and then it's moving out to the north at this point here. And then this is this afternoon, a beautiful day out here on the water. Many boats active here, the port's active, so it's a very nice day. Just a little bit of a very weird morning, but just want to show you guys that because I thought that was pretty interesting. So we look at now. This is Tropical Storm Philippe. We're gonna be switching our attention to Tropical Storm Philippe because we are expecting this storm to hit somewhere in between Nova Scotia and Maine. All right, so you can see looking at the looking at the current satellite loop for Philippe here, you can see that we still have some convection going on out here around the center of the storm. Very disorganized storm here. I mean, this has really not been looking good, but this has been a huge brain teaser for most of us because this has changed direction and changed its path, its projected path at least, for a few days straight, and this just keeps on changing. But now we are pretty much locked in for our answer of where this thing is going to be going. So you can see that it's pretty much drifting in a north-northwest direction here, and it's starting to move north towards Bermuda. All right, this is all part of Philippe. All of this thunderstorm buildup action here on the southern side, northern side, a lot of moisture, and even back here, this is all moisture left over from Philippe. This is all slowly circulating around the storm, but Philippe is definitely not going to strengthen from here. I think it's going to weaken as it moves over these colder waters. All right, but some models have been hinting that it could, it could strengthen a little bit, but I don't really think that this is going to be a huge storm. I think it's going to be a low-end tropical storm as it impacts Nova Scotia and Maine here, but you can see that we do still have circulation. All right, we're definitely not at a point where we could have enough circulation and convection that we could have an eye cycle go through, meaning that we would get an eye from the system becoming a hurricane. But this is just, I'm telling you guys, this may look like the beginning of a hurricane, but this is just not strong enough and not developed and organized enough to become a hurricane, and it's in a very it's not in a very nice environment. It's in an unfavorable environment for development of systems here, and so this is going to be a big reason of why we're not seeing Philippe become a hurricane before it hits the United States and then obviously Nova Scotia. So we look at our current projected path from the National Hurricane Center. Excuse me. But we see Bermuda, you guys are pretty much right on that edge of the path, meaning that you guys are just going to get missed by that center of the storm, so that basically means that you guys are pretty much going to get a direct hit from the system. I know that sounds a little scary, but it's really not, because this is going to be a weak to, I guess you could say, a moderately strong tropical storm here. I know there are tropical storm warnings up, but this will not be anything like Lee. I don't think Lee impacted you guys nearly as hard as it did for you guys in Maine and Nova Scotia, and then obviously out in the Massachusetts coastline, but this will definitely bring some good impacts to you guys. You can see we're expecting at around 2 p.m. Friday impacts to begin. All right, so tomorrow, basically, this storm is expected to start moving north pretty rapidly. All right, and by tomorrow, pretty much mid-afternoon tomorrow, we will start talking about landfall on Bermuda. All right, then this storm will advance. Now it's a low-end tropical storm. This is, at this point, would probably be a post-tropical cyclone here, but it's still got the tropical storm strength winds here. The characteristics, though, have slowly faded. And so we got you could say we still have a tropical storm on our hands. And this thing starts, it's looking like it's going to head straight up north and then just go in between Maine and Nova Scotia, but it actually starts turning west into Maine. And so all of Maine is all suddenly in that cone. And that's because we are getting a pretty strong trough, which I'll talk about in a minute, that's going to be sweeping through the eastern U.S., and that's what we got going on right here. All right, we've got a trough that's pretty much right here, okay? And right now it is moving to the east, and that's going to pick up Philippe, and it's going to pull it into the northeastern U.S., but specifically Maine here, and it's just going to twirl around in that in that um, in that line of storms, and it's just going to kind of fizzle out like that. All right, if that makes any sense. But that's why we're seeing Philippe abruptly start turning into Maine, and not completely missing Nova Scotia, but missing Nova Scotia from a direct hit. So we'll look at the NAM 3KM model for the Northeast. We're going to be looking at what we could expect with these storms for our trough, but not only our trough, and also the impacts to Maine and Nova Scotia from Philippe. So looking here, we're getting into, let's put this to the morning of tomorrow. So we're waking up tomorrow, and our trough has pretty much made it to the northeast. We still got some relatively heavy rainfall in some areas, but mainly just some showers, some thunderstorms here and there in the morning. Looks like another round of fog is on the way for you guys in the northeast as we get into tomorrow, because you can see we just got some very patchy areas of very light rain, which usually when you see this on a model like the NAM 3K model, that usually means that you're probably going to see some form of fog here. All right, and you still don't see Philippe, although Philippe is now starting to come up here. And since you're getting into the afternoon, daytime hours, you're starting to get some warmer temperatures firing up with those storms here. And we're getting into now 10 p.m. So you're going to bed of Friday, and now we're dealing with some pretty widespread storms here, just marching their way across the northeastern U.S. These are not supposed to be strong. I don't think they're going to be strong. Nobody's really expecting these to be severe. Just be aware that there are some outdoor plans. Actually, I wouldn't even say outdoor plans, because these storms are most likely going to hit at night. All right, but when they're stronger and less widespread, they will probably hit around 5-6 p.m. All right, so if you have any outdoor plans at around that time frame, be sure to reschedule them, because it is going to be a very, very wet evening and then eventually night. But these storms, they make it all the way to New Jersey and then into parts of Long Island. So you really got to watch out for some impacts from these thunderstorms all the way towards Long Island, just because they don't look that bad here, but I think that some of them could be strong. I don't expect any of them to be severe, but I think some of them could be strong. So that would just be damaging. I wouldn't even say damaging wind gusts, just relatively strong winds, and some heavy downpours. But other than that, no great impacts from those thunderstorms. And then at the same time, you have Tropical Storm Philippe starting to move up here, and we continue this going. All right, and Philippe is now moving into the outer bands are now moving into Maine here. We're getting a ton of rainfall here. I mean, a lot of rainfall over portions of the New Hampshire, Maine, and even out to the Massachusetts coastline. All right, and then all this rain makes landfall right into Maine and Nova Scotia, and at this point we run out of model run time here, but we can look at the 32 kilometer the NAM 32 kilometer model here, and we see that the heavier rain actually starts to move into Atlantic Canada. All right, so a lot of rainfall is going to fall in a lot of places throughout this system. So that's going to be it for Philippe for that part of the update. We're just going to be looking at these winds here from Philippe, and then eventually that trough also that's going to be picking up Philippe. It's going to be a very gusty day in general for the Northeast, and I'll show you guys why in a minute. We'll put this to 3 p.m. here. This is your trough coming down. I just want to make sure that you guys know that this isn't wind gusts. This is not sustained winds. This is just how strong those wind gusts are going to be. We can see up here near Kingston, Rochester, and Utica, New York, you could expect wind gusts at around 33 miles an hour. Some gusty winds for sure. So wind gusts pretty much settling at around 30 miles an hour for this entire region. And then behind it, we have another section of gustier winds out here near the Toronto area, Detroit, Cleveland, Lake Erie. All right, a lot of wind gusts reaching into the upper 20s here, so we will definitely see some gusty winds starting on Friday. All right, these will persist across much of the interior portions of the Northeast, getting a little stronger now. Pretty much consistently gusting to 30 here around Kingston, Montreal. I know that's in Canada, but we'll include you guys anyways. Burlington, in Vermont, or this might even be New York. I'm not sure. The Albany, Binghamton. All right, every one of you guys will definitely see wind gusts at least 20 miles an hour starting Friday. All right, and we'll put this to Saturday. We're getting into 4. This is 4 a.m. Saturday. Our trough at this point has weakened, but it's still strong enough to pick up. Philippe, and then throw into the United States here. So we switch our focus to Philippe because we're not that gusty out there in the northeastern U.S. at the moment at this point here. All right, so we'll put this to when we start getting those impacts from Philippe. This is around 10 p.m. on Saturday. So this is Saturday night here, and we're seeing wind gusts just off the coast of Yarmouth in Nova Scotia at around 40 miles an hour here. Bangor in Maine, the coastal regions of Maine, around 25 to 30 miles an hour. But those really strong winds here, at this point, could be gusting up to 60 miles an hour. All right, I think 65 miles an hour too. I think this could be a little, I don't even know how I should put it, but over exaggeration, I guess you could say, with these wind gusts. I think they will be a little bit less strong. All right, but there will definitely be some strong wind gusts that we got to talk about here. And so this will be an overnight storm as it makes landfall. We're getting into, this is pretty much the middle of the night, Saturday into Sunday. And, actually, no, this is, let me see. Sorry, this is actually around 3 p.m. So I apologize for the mixing up with the time frames here. So let me get this straight here. So I actually meant to say here that around 11 p.m. is when we start getting those stronger winds, or 11 a.m. I should say. My gosh, what's wrong with me tonight? But 11 a.m., so pretty much late morning into those afternoon daytime hours of Saturday is when we start seeing those stronger winds move ashore. All right, and then by the time we get to about 4 or 5 p.m. here, all right, we're starting to get those really strong winds moving through the area. Now Yarmouth gusting to 50. If you're literally on the coastline, expect gusts to 50, maybe a little bit higher at points. Halifax, you guys at around 40. 35, 40. But that will quickly change. Bangor and Maine, you're still gusty, but pretty much not a big change in your wind gusts here. Sticking around 30 miles an hour is a safe thing to say here. But now we get into we're getting to Saturday evening, Saturday night, and now we could be gusting to 60 out here in Yarmouth. The HRRR, or this might be, I think this is GFS actually. The GFS is still saying that we're going to be gusting to around 50 miles an hour by dinner time, and then we're getting into our overnight hours, and this is where we really get our strongest impacts. Looking like the wind gusts, the strongest wind gusts, will impact Nova Scotia, and we could see wind gusts that could be in excess of 50 miles an hour midway through Nova Scotia, all the way towards Halifax. Still wind gusts showing up here at around 50 miles an hour. Yarmouth, now you guys will be gusting to 65 miles an hour. So this could actually be one of those stronger storms here with those winds. All right, that rainfall I don't think is going to be a huge problem. It's just those winds that are going to be pretty strong. Those sustained winds, all right, they will be strong here. Sustained winds at around 30, 40 miles an hour. All right, that's considered a weak to moderately strong tropical storm. All right, but each tropical storm will most likely have wind gusts ranging from 40 to 60 miles an hour when you have a weak to moderate tropical storm. So this is basically an average tropical storm here. So I know 60, 65, 68 miles an hour is very, very fast here. That's certainly that is certainly a thing here. But I just don't expect this to be as strong as previous storms like Hurricane Lee. All right, so we're getting into the middle of the night here, and those 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts have started to move inland here. Now we see Halifax gusting to 53, Yarmouth still gusting pretty much around 60, just off the coast, gusting to 62, 63. All right, St. John, all right, in New Brunswick, Canada, 53 miles an hour. Moncton, I don't know how to pronounce it, 48, 46 miles an hour here. And then Bangor, Maine, still gusting to 30. Not a huge change for you guys in Bangor. We go back to the northeastern U.S., our mainland here. We are going to get gusts up to 30 potentially as we go from Saturday into Sunday. So be on the lookout for some stronger winds also out there in southern New England. And then we carry on into Sunday here, and now you guys in Halifax could be gusting to 60 at this point here. All right. You can see we're gusting to pretty much, around 60 miles an hour right here in Halifax, 61, pretty much at around 1 a.m. Saturday into Sunday. So those stronger winds, those like really, really strong winds, are going to be moving right through around the middle of the night. All right, it's going to start probably midday, around 11 to noon on Saturday. So it's going to be a pretty long storm here, and you can see that we're going all the way up into parts of northern New Brunswick. We're still getting wind gusts at around 52 miles an hour. So very, very big area here receiving strong wind gusts. Out here in Sydney, around 35 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts. All right. We're getting later into the day on Saturday. We still got very gusty winds off the coast of Halifax. You guys will at this point be gusting to 55. Over to your east, you could be gusting to 60. And Saurus, 52 miles an hour. Moncton, 55. So I'm going to run through this quicker, but you can see just for the most part that these wind gusts will be up to 50, in some areas up to 60 for a pretty long time. I would say definitely over a day. So carrying on into Sunday, you still will likely see wind gusts in some areas gusting to 50 and then possibly 60 miles an hour. So we go over to the GFS model now for our upcoming storm systems out here in the United States. So I'm going to wrap this update up for you guys in just a moment here, but I just want to look at the end of this update some big things that are going to be going on here across the United States. So we are experiencing a big pattern change here where we are transitioning into that classic fall pattern change where we see cold shots and cold fronts coming down from Canada into the central U.S. We see our secondary severe weather season starting to ramp up again, and we get that traditional jet stream where we get cold air in the north, warmer air in the south, and storms cut across the central plains. All right, so look at the GFS here. We see our storm system move through. Here is Philippe, and we're pretty much done with them by the 8th. All right, this is by Monday. All right, here's our next system starting to come up here in the northwestern U.S. We're going to get a pretty good break, a few days without a storm system moving through the United States until we get to about the 11th. This is going to be what is this going to be? This is going to be Wednesday, all right? This is going to be Wednesday the 11th. We've got a system that's starting to take shape here across the central U.S. Nothing much going on other than some relatively heavy rain, all right? But here we go. It starts to get going here, and we see a lot of rainfall starting to move over parts of northern Missouri into central Illinois. And all of a sudden, we get a huge storm here, which could be potentially a big severe weather event for the southeastern U.S. And if this were to be the picture that we would see on the 12th, which would be Friday, pretty much just a week out, all right, we would get a pretty big severe weather outbreak, I would say, if we saw this picture. This will change But this is showing a pretty nasty signal for a big, and when I say big, I mean a big severe weather outbreak out here the in parts of the southeast. So we gotta watch that, and that could be multi-day. We're getting into this would be Saturday. We're getting into Saturday. We still have some lingering strong to severe storms moving through the area. And at the same time, out here in the northeast, we have a very strong storm system that's carrying through your area. That's going to be associated with that severe weather event that's going to be upcoming. And this is where I am noting a possible blockbuster storm here. I've been saying this for the past few days because the GFS model has been continuously saying that anywhere from the 13th to pretty much the 16th of October, we could have a very intense and dangerous, potentially damaging storm that could move throughout parts of the central U.S., the southeastern U.S., and the northeastern U.S. Those are the areas that I think are going to be at risk for receiving big-time impacts from this upcoming system, all right? So that was the latest 18Z GFS. That is what we get here from the 18Z. We get a lot of rain. Again, we get a lot of rain up there in the northeastern U.S. All right, but we look at the 12Z. The 12Z and the 6Z are very different. All right, the 12Z still shows some sort of an event going on down here in the southeastern U.S., but almost completely off the coast, and then pretty much just the extreme coast, the very coast of the Gulf Coast here is shown to get hit by this severe weather event. All right. But the timing, it's pretty similar, pretty much just a day off here. But we're getting into the 14th. This is Saturday of about 2 weeks out, or I guess this would actually be just a week and 3 days out. And we have a very, very dangerous and looks like an intense either severe weather outbreak here or dangerous flooding event. This is going to change. As you can see, we're looking at now the 12Z GFS. The difference between the 12Z and the 18Z are very big. So we're still back and forth between deciding what could happen here in this future storm system. But this is 216 hours out, so it's a very long time out. This is just showing a signal for what could happen in the future. So this is just showing a signal of a potential flooding event or a severe weather event, all right? And so by the time we get into Sunday, this is now off the coast, and that moves out. All right, that's going to be a big system, I'm sure. And we could even look at the 6Z. This is early this morning's GFS run here, and the GFS still showing that same system moving across the United States. Notice you still see that rain out there in parts of Missouri and Illinois as the system starts to take shape. You don't see a huge severe weather event taking place out there in the southeastern U.S. Just a lot of moisture and potential rainfall out there across the Gulf. All right, but then all eyes and attention is on the northeastern U.S., and we get another big system that moves through, again shown by the GFS. So we just compared the 6Z, the 12Z, and the 18Z GFS model, pretty much all the models that came out today. All right, so this has been the GFS has been continuously showing a big storm system from the 13th to the 16th of October, with the greatest impacts most likely being from Missouri down to the southeastern U.S. and then the northeastern U.S. We are going to continue watching this, and I have been saying that this is going to be a blockbuster storm here, and I am going to continuously be saying this because I'm expecting a big-time storm system here, again from the 13th to the 16th of October. All right, so for the last part of the update, we just look at your temperature anomalies here from the GFS model. This is just going to be showing us where our cold air is going to be and where our warm air is going to be. This is our driving setup and pattern in which we get these strong storms. All right, you can see we will get an Arctic invasion here from this cold air that's going to be moving down from Canada. You can see a big shot of cold air. Let me get rid of that arrow. All right, but a big shot of cold air will be moving down from Canada into portions of the north central plains here, and then we see a cold front starting to take shape here, and then this is around the 6th. This is not your storm system just yet. All right, this is going to be pretty much a separate storm system, if any. All right, and we see what happens with this one. All right, and that cold air, it's continuing to move off to the east, and now this is going to be colliding with warm air here. And you see these 3 little fronts here. There's 1, 2, and then 3 right here. This is where you could have some sort of a severe weather event, because you've got warm air pushing against that cold air, which causes tension in the atmosphere. And we can even switch this to our precipitation map here, and we don't see much going on here. We have high pressure here, and that's going to be keeping us from having that severe weather event. So even if this high pressure was weaker, I'm telling you guys, we would get some sort of a storm to take shape here. But because this is so strong, 1,030 millibars of high pressure that's just stationed right here in the central U.S., that's why, we don't see any type of system moving through, okay? And so it doesn't really matter about this cold air and the warm air colliding with each other. It's not going to do anything because that high pressure is just going to be stationed right there. But notice how this warm air starts to break a little bit. It starts going back towards the northwestern U.S., and we get some pockets and some openings here in that big just area of heat. All right, so that's going to allow that cold front to not only move to the east, but also fill in these spots in the southern U.S. All right, that's going to be a big change that we're going to be experiencing. All right, but notice how this cold air, it's slowly kind of wrapping around itself. And so that's why we end up with cold air still hanging on to cold air by October 11th. And this is where we get that total pattern flip. All right, we go from one section of the United States out here in the eastern U.S. in cold air, one out here in the western U.S. with warm air, and then all of a sudden, this flip-flops, and now you have the northern U.S., the entire northern U.S. in that cold air, the cold air zone, and then in the southern U.S., you have warm air. This is your typical winter jet stream right here. You can see we got a few bumps and bruises in the jet stream here, but mainly staying across the central U.S. Some ridging out here in the southeastern and southern U.S. here, but other than that, this is going to be a huge opening for some sort of a storm system to move across the northern and eventually, as this ridging moves off to the west, the southeastern U.S. So we see what happens here. We look at our time frame again. We're at the 11th, so we're getting close to that system, and here we go. We get an Arctic invasion that eventually gets to the point where it's so strong here, you can see temperatures getting down 20 degrees below historical average here in the central U.S., and so that's why we're going to get a big system out of this, and this cold air starts completely colliding with that warm air. And notice how we see a very precise line showing up here. This is splitting right across the northeastern U.S., all right? And this is why we see that big storm, because you have cold air constantly colliding with warm air, and it's so lined up perfectly right here. Look at this. It's completely lined up. So that's why you're getting all that precipitation, because when you get cold air and warm air pushing against each other at the same time, you have a environment that's loaded with moisture that all comes together, and boom, you have a gigantic storm system that is going to roll through your area. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. Just gotta stay safe out there with Tropical Storm Philippe out there in parts of Maine and then into Nova Scotia. Stay safe out there with those storm systems moving through the United States. We'll continue to talk about them. I'll continue tracking them for you, and I'll do my best to keep you guys safe and updated on whatever goes on weather-wise across the United States. So thank you all for coming to watch this video. I apologize for the slowness of the video, me losing my speech here for a few moments, messing up that timing. All right, it's been a long day for me, and hopefully it'll be better tomorrow or on Saturday. So thank you all for coming to watch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.